Hello there, it's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever, the only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad. I almost forgot my own name then, which wouldn't have been a good start. And with me as always, those fingers through my hair, that's like I'm in the stare, that strips my conscience bare, it's witchcraft. It's Anthony James!
How are you, Konrad? How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I apologise for my poor rendition of Frank Sinatra there.
Lovely. That was lovely.
Will be revealed in time. I don't know why I continue to persist with this fallacy that the listeners / viewers don't know what film we're going to talk about, as if it's this big reveal. We are, of course, here today to talk about the Ari Aster smash hit, Hereditary. It's not even really about witches. I suppose there are some witches in it, in a manner of speaking.
Well, they're hinted at in the beginning. Do they come in? You'll have to tune in for the spoilers to find out.
Yeah, you'll have to listen to the end. We're not giving that away for free. We know how our bread is buttered. Thank you very much. Apart from that, how are you doing, Anthony?
Doing all right. Feeling much better. As our listeners will know that I was feeling under the weather. I'm feeling much better, which means I'm not going to talk about it ever again. Because, you have your I'm getting better phase, and then you have your I'm feeling better phase. And then next time you hear me talking about sickness, I'll be sick again. Yeah. I don't know what it'll be, but we'll find out.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Yeah. Well, hopefully nothing serious. we won't. Depending on the tone of the conversation, you'll know whether it's a serious illness or not. Without further ado, let's move swiftly away from that hypothetical situation and talk about some gosh darn movies.
Let's do it.
Movies, we're here to talk about them. It's still spooky season, which means I am still getting to force Anthony at gunpoint to watch scary films, and I am loving it, listener. I'm loving life. Before we get into that, I've got to go round the houses, just do some very quick movie news stuff. Bloody Dune is out this week. I'm excited about it. That's all I had to say on it. Just excited.
I'm excited about it too. Maybe after how the spooky season is done, we'll do an episode on it.
Oh, maybe that'd be good. I was talking to my partner about it, and I was saying I'm not in a rush to see it purely because I've read the book and I've seen the David Lynch movie, so I know what's going to happen. It's not going to be spoiled, but it's still going to be amazing, I think. One thing I don't know what's going to happen in is that their new Batman, which I saw the trailer for. Have you seen the new trailer for that yet?
Yes. Oh, I really like this. Oh god, it was good.
It looks good.
I saw it and it was good.
It looks good. Like the cinematographer is a guy called Greg. I don't know if it's Greg or Greig because it's spelled Greig. How would you pronounce that?
Greig.
You would say Greig or Greig.
Yeah.
Greig if it was German.
Greig. It doesn't really. I don't know. Could be Chipmunk for all I know.
We'll call him G. G.
Yeah, G. Mr. G.
Mr. G. Frazier is the cinematographer, and his stuff looks an awful lot like a sort of a Roger Deakins-esque kind of photography, which it looks stunning. Robert Pattinson looks like a bloody good Batman. I am now officially excited for that Batman movie.
I to be honest with you, I love all Batman movies. The Ben Affleck one, not so much, because that wasn't really a Batman film. That was like Superman versus Batman. Yeah. But see, whenever you have a Batman standalone film, Joel Schumacher aside, it's never really gone badly, to be honest with you. Shock repelling spray and everything.
I like the Joel Schumacher Batman. I've gone on record as saying that Batman Forever, it's not anymore, but as a child, Batman Forever was my favourite of the Batman films. Well, because the bad guys had neon Tommy guns. How cool is that?
I honestly think, though, I'm excited for it. Just to be completely honest, I'm a big fan of Robert Pattinson, if I'm honest with you. I think that we could all move past the idea that he was in Twilight. Also, I will just say, I actually am someone who, when I hear a good point, I do change my opinion. And I love Lindsay Ellis's video about Twilight. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. So I do respect people who are in Twilight a bit more. But I will say, he is a big fan of Johnny Flynn, the musician and actor. And in fact, I think they went to college together or something like that. And I just love the idea that when Robert Pattinson was going out with Kristen Stewart, he dragged her along to a Johnny Flynn concert. So I love Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You might have been at the same Johnny Flynn concert at some point in your past.
I might have been. Yeah,
you could have been rubbing shoulders with the stars of tomorrow. It's a possibility. It is a possibility. Yeah. I haven't got any interesting stories like that, but I agree. But we're not here. We're not here as much as I might want to. We're not here to talk about Dune or the new Batman. We're here to talk about a movie that I essentially made Anthony watch against his will. And that is Ari Aster's stunning feature debut, Hereditary. So let's talk about it. Let's get into the spookiness.
Okay, Konrad, before you go on, I just want to say, before you go on, okay, I did watch this at gunpoint. My wife was not feeling well, so one night she had to go to bed, and so I had to delay the recording of this because I didn't get a chance to watch it, because goddamn, I am not watching this on my own. Okay, so I had to wait till the next night to watch it. So you did force me into this, and I want to say one thing, because you said it was his feature film debut. I just want to say, every single person who's ever talked about movies on the internet, I'm sure at some point has thought, I'd love to make a movie. Can you imagine if this was your first fucking movie?
What? You make like, I think Ari Aster before this had made like 4 or 5 short films, which, they're still films, they still require skill. But to go from like short movies, admittedly none of which I've seen, so maybe they're like the best short films ever made. But to go from that to Hereditary, which I'm just gonna say it right now. There are a lot of horror movies that get labeled with this. It's almost like an albatross for label. People like the hyperbole around it says it's the scariest movie since The Exorcist, which is, I think, unhelpful in a lot of cases. But there is definitely an argument to say that this is one of the scariest movies, certainly that I have ever seen. And as a feature debut, I mean, as you say, talk about knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it was scary. And what I liked about it wasn't jump scary. It was actually it was scary through the actors' performances and the script and the ominous music. The score was fantastic. It was really creepy, and I loved whenever the things started happening the way they were happening. It was a real journey down a woman's mind at the same time as being all this crazy shit happening in the world. And I love the way that was balanced. I think by the end, we're sort of, obviously the whole thing could be a metaphor, but by the end, there's no arguing that things that were actually going on were going on. Having said that, Toni Collette's performance down that rabbit hole was just mind-blowing. And I couldn't believe when I looked it up and found out that she wasn't nominated for any major awards. I couldn't believe it.
It's because, it's the same thing with comedy nowadays. Horror doesn't get nominated for awards anymore. It just doesn't get treated seriously, even when it is clearly deserving of something. And you're absolutely right. Toni Collette's performance in this is absolutely amazing. So before we get into that, I just want to lay the groundwork slightly. So how much did you know about this coming in? Did you know anything about it at all?
I knew nothing about it. Actually, to be honest with you, because Midsommar was the first one I saw of Ari Aster, I didn't know. That was filmed in Sweden. Or
yes, I think it might have been filmed.
They made it to be in
Hungary.
Sweden.
Yeah, I think it was actually filmed in Hungary or something.
Yeah, so they made it to be in Sweden.
Yeah,
and I think I heard an interview of Ari Aster talking about making something in Hungary at some point. So I always, for some reason, thought that this film was set in Europe. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
And the only other thing I knew about it was when we were talking about Midsommar. You were talking about the family dynamics within Midsommar at the start. And then you said about how that's done really, really well in Hereditary, and that's literally the only two things I knew about it. I knew that it was. I thought that it was in Europe, which it wasn't, and I knew it was about family dynamics based on what you had said.
I'm trying to think if they ever actually say where this is set. It could be Europe. It could
be
Utah.
I think it's Utah.
Oh, do they actually?
Well, that's
say
where it was filmed. That's where it was filmed anyway.
That ruins my joke. Then I thought maybe it was going to be some small American enclave in France. Okay, so I mean, let's Le Utah. So I just made that. That's not a French pronunciation or how the French would pronounce Utah. I've just kind of gone a Inspector Clouseau route with my pronunciation there. Okay, so the early runnings in this movie. You get creepy looking girl. It's a classic horror movie trope. You get Millie Shapiro, who is a perfectly normal looking young woman, but they really make her up. Like she has a very unique face, but they purposefully make her up to look like the most fucking creepy kid that you've ever seen in this.
Yeah, well, she does have a I don't know what you would say, a medical disorder. I don't know how you would say it, which does in the worst, in like sort of the most extreme cases, can physically deform someone. Now, I've seen images of her on red carpets and things, and I think they were very much playing it up within the film with makeup. And
absolutely,
very much so. Yeah.
But I mean, it's brilliant casting nonetheless, because she has a very distinctive face. Her character of Charlie. What you see her early on, and when I first saw this movie, and I'd be interested to see what your opinion was. You see a creepy looking girl, and you're like, well, obviously she's going to be the villain here, because she's a creepy looking girl in a movie that seems to be about possession. She's going to be the not Riley. I can't remember the character's name in The Exorcist, but she's going to be the girl who gets possessed. As it turns out, she doesn't last that long. In this movie,
as is foreshadowed by her cutting a bird's head off. That was great. She doesn't last very long. I didn't see that coming. I really, really didn't. That was about half an hour in.
She didn't see it coming either until.
Oh, she should have, because there was some foreshadowing there. There was the witchy symbol on the post, which was which was cool. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this one. So basically, she took a nut allergy. I immediately said, as soon as I said to Emma, Chekhov's nut allergy. Bring your fucking EpiPen. Like, what is wrong with you?
What are you doing? What are you doing, Charlie? And I'm trying to remember Peter. Alex Wolff plays Peter, her older brother. So they go to their party, and they don't bring their bloody EpiPen.
I don't really understand. I don't understand. Like, I was having the conversation with Emo. Like, this forces us to talk about this sort of thing. And we're just like, if we had a child, God forbid, if we had a child that had, because I feel massive empathy for parents who have children with these allergies. If we had a child with an allergy like that, I would be making them carry two all the time.
Yeah, like double holsters.
Double holsters. Because like you hear horror stories about the first one not working, and then they can't, you hear horror stories. How are they going to a party with no EpiPen? It doesn't make any sense.
Because Peter is an idiot. Is the real crux of this. And you've absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head early here with, I think, part of what makes this movie so good, and that is this family dynamic that exists at the heart. There is a horror movie that happens here, a very scary horror movie that happens here, but the thing that really elevates, I think, Hereditary above your typical kind of haunting movie like your, I don't know, Insidious or something like that, is the believability of this family dynamic. So I think Alex Wolff does a brilliant job of portraying Peter as believably stupid. Like he's a dumb teenager, he's very self-interested, but he's still a little bit sympathetic. And that scene, so I should say, spoilers ahead, we're going to get really into what happens in this movie. There's no way around it.
We're going through.
We're going deep. So the conversation that happens after Charlie has her allergy attack and sticks her head out of the window of a moving car that Peter is driving to try and breathe, and has her head just bashed off by a lamppost or a telephone pole or whatever it is, and there is this enormous family fallout from this, and it all kind of culminates in them sitting round a table, kind of being very passive-aggressive and picking at each other, and it just explodes into this argument between Peter and Annie, who's Toni Collette's character, with Gabriel Byrne just being the most neutral father I've ever seen, just being like, now settle down, and like just you're not helping, Gabriel. All right, just pick a side, support your wife. But I mean that scene. It just, that was the moment for me, I think, when I knew that I was really going to love this movie.
Yes, I have to agree with that. And I think that it's interesting at the end of that scene. Like I agree with everything she was saying when she was having this tirade at Peter, and I agree with everything she was saying, because I completely understand with the idea he didn't even say sorry. Like but I can understand like the crazy crap he's going through in his own mind after that happened, but. Yeah. He didn't even say sorry, and he didn't even like take ownership of what he did. But I have to say, I was with her the whole time, and then at the very end, I thought it was brilliant the way that he said to his mom then, but she didn't want to go to the party, and you made her go. And I'm just like, oh, this is like, that made me think about it in another way. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Actually, I still think he should have said sorry, but it's still, it puts a new spin on it. And I will say that the relationship between Toni Collette's character, what was the main character? I can't remember her name.
Annie is Toni Collette.
Annie,
Peter is Alex Wolff.
Annie and Peter. The relationship between them every time they did something, and like they argued the same way at each other, and they showed traits that were the same as each other, I just would turn around to Emer and say, "Hereditary." There was just so much going on between the generations. It was great.
Well, yeah, and talking about things being passed down in the family that perhaps are not good for anyone involved. That soon kind of becomes clear what might have been going on there, as we find out more and more about Annie's mother, who dies pretty much right at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. Well, before the movie starts, really.
Well, yeah, before the movie starts. Yeah, I think we see them attending the funeral, and that's the only thing we see of her until we start seeing a little bit more of her, because she pops up in one of my favourite. It's not even really a scare, to be honest, and I think that's something I love about this movie is there's a couple of jump scares, but really Ari Aster is the master of what I like to call the wait, what the fuck is that in the corner? Holy shit, is that, oh fuck, it just moved kind of scare, where it's like that he shows you a steady wide shot of a room, and it seems innocuous at first, and then you notice that there's a fucking person standing in the corner of the room, and then someone turns on a light and they're gone, and it's just and it happens
it's almost like a reverse scare. It's a reverse jump scare, because by the time like the big moment like boom happens, they're not there anymore. It's like a reverse. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
He does it throughout this movie. I think it's one of the reasons why Midsommar didn't work as well for me, is that it has less of these kind of moments. There's a couple similar, but the one that always... There's two that really stand out to me. One we'll get to later, but the one I wanted to get your impression of, because to me this is like the moment where Ari Aster kind of announces what kind of horror director he's going to be, where Annie walks up the stairs to the like attic where she's working on her little dioramas, which is like a great little studio, and she sees her mother in the corner of the room just like smiling in the darkness, and it's just the most it like literally gives me goosebumps thinking about it now. It's so unsettling.
Yeah, I was unsettled by that, and it's the way it's actually lit as well is brilliant, because it's lit in a way that you could, if you just saw a flash of it, you could convince yourself that it was a sheet thrown over a mannequin for a second. It doesn't like, not all the details are there, and it really leads you to study it and study it and study it, and you're in the moment with her, and like so she's doing the same thing. She doesn't necessarily know it's her mother straight away, and then by the time she does turn the light on, she's gone. And I completely agree with you. It was really creepy. They do the same thing a couple of times with the daughter. And I think it worked really well. And it's a really interesting way to do it. You're right in terms of Midsommar. There was one time where someone was sneaking around before they stole the book. Or took pictures. That was the only time, really. Yeah, the actor, I always forget his name. I feel terrible for it. But the actor who plays Chidi in The Good Life, when he's stealing the book in Midsommar, and the camera, Good Place rather, and the camera does a 360 pan around, and if you pause it at the right moment, you can see someone standing in the corner. But that's kind of a different thing to this, where they really let you look at it, and they do it a few times. So I mean, Anthony, I think it's entirely reasonable for us to now analyse whether you think this family made a good decision in letting this weird woman, who is obviously a witch, into their life and performing a seance. Has a seance ever resulted in anything good? Is my thinking here. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, it depends whose perspective you look at it. From the perspective of Paimon, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, from the demon, he's having a great time.
He's having a great time. I was suspicious of this woman Joan from the very beginning. Is all I'll say.
Had a lot of answers to questions that maybe she shouldn't have had.
I'm going to tell you this. Now, I'm not a psychic. Would you believe? I'm not a psychic. But
wait a minute.
The moment that the reaction on her face and the way she delivered the line, whenever Annie said, Annie said that her daughter had passed away. Whenever Joan was like, you could see her thinking in her mind, "What do I do about this?" And then she went straight away and she said, and then she said,
her son died.
But my son died. Yeah. And it was almost like, I thought of the answer. I got it, And because of that honestly, that line delivery, I was like, I'm suspicious of you from the very beginning. So then when she came up to her in the car park, I was like, oh my God, I had a seance. I was like, oh, fuck, here we go.
Yeah. classic. It's the classic. It's like one of those charity people on the street where, like, once you've been around the block a few times, you know what they're going to say to you, you know the kind of lines they're going to give you, and you got to be ready for it. Old, come have a seance with me, I've done it and I've spoken to my dead son. It's a classic, and Annie falls for it hook, line and sinker. The actual, so I mean, their relationship develops a bit. In the meantime, Ari Aster, who also wrote this, is sort of slowly drip feeding in little nuggets of information about what might have been going on with Annie's mother. There are kind of documents she finds that maybe hint and information that she actually talks about with Joan, where she finds out that her mother was wanted to breastfeed Peter, and that they were maybe very close to him in a way that perhaps a grandmother shouldn't be, and that they've been isolated
to Charlie, is it?
Well, to Charlie as well.
She kept Peter away from them.
Yes, so she breastfed
because the grandmother
Charlie.
wanted to. Yeah.
So she breastfed Charlie, and they were trying to get very close to Peter, and Annie in response was like, "Nope, this is weird.
Yeah,
stay away from my son." Which, to be fair, in a film where a lot of this family make bad decisions, that's a good one, I think. To be like, nope. You are in league with the devil. Don't talk to me and my son ever again, please.
Yeah, I have to say there wasn't too many decisions from the family that I thought didn't make sense. I think going to a séance of any sort is probably a fool's errand, and
you're asking for trouble.
I'm not going to say she deserved what she got, but they're very, very much like, what are you doing? Like, you don't do that. But apart from the actual, like, she was vulnerable, I suppose.
She was.
But apart from that, I actually agree with most of what the characters' decisions were. Like, it made sense each time.
Yeah. I think that's something that Ari Aster has actually spoken about in this, that the kind of visual metaphor of the doll's house at the beginning, and it's returned to throughout with actually their family in the doll's house, and then it's returned to later on, is essentially saying that this family has no control over what's happening here. Like, what happens to them would have happened to them regardless of the decisions they made, because they really had no agency in the whole thing. So when they eventually go through with the seance, and we get the incredibly creepy sequence where Annie begins speaking with Charlie's voice, which is always super fucked up when something like that happens. And you get the little flame tricks. We've all seen Derek Acora. We know how we know how the game is played.
I think he passed away, actually.
Oh, did he? Oh, well.
So
rest in peace, I guess.
Yeah,
Derek Acora.
Jeez, he's not resting in peace. He's going to be
no,
haunting
he's going to be haunting something. Like, there's money to be made. Derek in ghosts. Derek Acora will be there, even as a ghost. Please don't haunt me, Derek, if you are dead. I have nothing.
Imagine he's not dead. I just remembered oh god, that's hilarious if he's not dead. Oh.
His career's dead at the very least.
It's Ant and Dec at the music festival all over again.
I can't believe they've gone. I saw a footage of them looking very glum after Newcastle lost to Spurs last weekend, and it made me feel very happy about the fact that they're still alive.
I suppose that is good. Well, they're unhappy, which is bad. But
yeah, I was happy to see them live to be disappointed by that.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say when Newcastle lost to morality, but that's
as well.
That's the whole Premier League. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, those in glass houses. Let's be honest. Yeah. Okay, so they do the seance. They done summon a demon. He comes on in, and you get this cool like visual. I guess you'd call it a motif, like the kind of lights, like someone's just scanning a barcode over the people in this household that indicates that they are being possessed by this by the power of this being.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it returns multiple times. There's a couple of like great little like scares that I wanted to mention. So again, not really a jump scare, but the moment where Peter looks to his left when he's in the classroom, and his reflection like smiles at him is so good and so creepy.
Yeah, I like that one too. Yeah.
So I mean, really, I think we're gonna have to get into the end of this now. We're gonna have to get into the end game, because I think this movie is a very slow burn. It's kind of creepy. right up until the last half hour. How did you deal with the last half hour? How did you feel throughout it?
I actually liked to see when it started committing to stuff. I like that. I like a film which lays little hints the whole way through, and then just says, "Yeah, those hints were leading to something. Here you go." It's like Midsummer does the same. And I like that. I really liked it. I love the you mentioned the one about the granny's form in the darkness earlier. There was another one. There was another one of them. Whenever after the dad gets burnt to death, and Peter comes down and finds his body behind Annie behind him on the roof, basically inside. Well, that is really creepy.
that entire sequence. So that's kind of what I meant, because like I love horror movies, and the first time I watched this movie, that whole final half hour. So Annie discovers that she can burn this like diary that has some power bound to it. She tries to do it once. It sets her arm on fire. She kind of chickens out a little bit. Then she tries to convince her husband, Steve, to watch as she does it and to help her, because she thinks she's actually going to be committing suicide. And Paimon, he's figured this one out. He's like, nah, I'm not going to burn you this time. I'm going to burn Steve instead. She throws the diary away. Steve burns to death. And then we get this incredibly creepy final sequence, like literally the last half hour, where it's just Peter and Annie, who has been possessed by Paimon, alone in the house, in this dark house together. And honestly, when I was watching this, I had to go and stand on the other side of the room and start doing some washing up, because I was so scared of what was going on. Like, I need to put some distance between myself and the screen here, because this is so fucking creepy. And as you say, it starts with him sitting up in bed, and you see Annie like a spider in the top corner of the room, in this wide shot, and then he turns to face the window to show a reverse, which shows the doorway, and you see her kind of like spider walk along the ceiling, and then you get it again when he goes downstairs and discovers Steve's burned body. You see her in the ceiling again, and then he turns around and you see the sort of slowly materializing form of this just random fucking naked dude just standing in the doorway.
He's not
smiling.
that random. Not that random.
Oh, who was that?
You know the funeral scene at the start with the granny?
Yeah.
How and when Charlie was like touching Granny's body, and then the coffin closed. I think when the coffin closed, the space that the coffin was in the shot when it closed, the space that was there, that guy's face was just there smiling, looking at her.
Oh, so really? I don't remember that.
I spotted that at the very start in the funeral. I saw that guy and I was like, what the fuck is that weirdo smiling at her? And then I was like, there must be a reason. That guy is part of something. Like, why is he smiling like that? That's an extra taking some liberties there. And then later on in that room, he's the guy who's standing in the doorway. He's naked. He's smiling.
This is why we bring Anthony into these things, because he's got an eye for the detail that I simply don't possess. And I had no idea that was the same guy. I thought it was just, it's established as a cult, a coven of witches or whatever.
And a load of people came to the funeral who they didn't know, so it was all built in that there were cult members at the funeral, because she was like, in her speech, she was saying, it's, I don't know where all you people came from, but it's a bit weird, but okay.
Yeah, fine. I guess this is like the end of Big Fish, where it's like, the stories were all true.
Carrying the granny to the river and all.
some conjoined twins there. Yeah, I mean, so, okay, that's where that guy was from. Still, he was creepy as fuck, and then you get it's just tension for those whole, 10, 15 minutes, and then suddenly it breaks, and Annie sprints out of the corner after Peter, and it turns into kind of your classic horror movie ending, I guess, with the killer chasing the final survivor. Except, I wanted to get your opinion on this, as someone who's maybe, less into horror. Traditionally, you'd have, this would be the bit of like a slasher where the person being pursued discovers all the bodies, and there's a couple of jump scares, and it ends in a big kind of physical confrontation. In this, they don't really do that in Hereditary. It ends on a really kind of grim note, a very scary, horrible, grim note. And I think a lot of people who don't like Hereditary, there aren't that many, but there are some, don't like the ending very much. How did you find that kind of conclusion to the conflicts between Annie and Peter?
I thought it was fine. I like the ending of this film, and I don't really like a film that was this almost, like, I would say depressing, actually. This depressing and this dark and this, negative. It would have felt weird to me if at the end it was like, they burn the witches or whatever, and then like they escape through a fence onto a highway. A trucker picks them up and they go, "Are you all right?" It's like, yeah, just take me to the hospital. Like, that would have been like, and you have like a hopeful ending. That would have been a weird ending for this. I liked it, and I will say about the ending, I kind of feel like this is like the same but opposite ending as Midsummer, because at the end of this, I didn't feel like I was on Peter's side. I felt like he was inhabited by this evil, but he had joined a cult, and at the end of Midsummer, Florence Pugh's character had joined a cult. But I actually felt empathy for her, and I actually felt that was the best thing for her. Weirdly,
yeah, she needs to get it out of her system. Florence. I know absolutely what you mean. I think so. I did feel. I think there's a moment when Peter is running away from Annie and he runs up to the attic and shuts the attic door, and there's this kind of reverse shot, or it's not really shot reverse shot because they're not in the same room, but he's this teenage boy who's been quite distant from his family the whole time partially because he's a teenager and partially because of the horrific events that have transpired, and so he's not been very close or very emotional with them. And then there's this moment where he's like sitting on the ground, his like head in his hands, sobbing, just crying, "Mummy, mummy," as Toni Collette's character, Possessed, is against the attic door, like so on the ceiling somehow, just smashing her head into the door over and over again. And it has stayed with me since I first saw this. It's such an upsetting image, because you know that you are reminded that this is like a 16-year-old boy who has no one now. He has no guidance. He's completely vulnerable. And then the banging stops, and suddenly fucking Annie is in the room sawing her own head off with, I guess, piano wire. I'm not really sure what she's
something like that.
And it's just, she's just staring at him, and Ari Aster is great at gore, or the special effects people he uses are great at gore, and Toni Collette just staring down at him as these wet noises come from her neck as she saws her head off is horrible. It's a horrible scene.
That was absolutely, I was like, even Possessed, I wouldn't do that to myself. I don't understand what she was doing, how she was doing it. Yeah, I know. But it was gruesome. And I think that's about Ari Aster actually is, he holds back on it as well. So therefore, it's not like, he's doing like sort of a minimum, although a medium amount of gore, and then he has these huge bits of gore. He has like hardly any gore, and then a fucking huge bit of gore, like a head getting hit off by a telephone pole, or her cutting her head off with a thing. So it's like, he doesn't, like, a lot of films I suppose would have moments where they take it from no gore to medium gore. He goes from no gore to the most horrific thing you've ever seen.
He goes to 0 to 11, just ramps it up. It's like, here you fucking go. He wants some horror? Here's some horror.
11 stupid.
Well, I mean, Peter turns out to be 11 stupid, as he gets the barcode scanner over his eyes, and suddenly Paimon's gotten in, and he wanders through the garden. Everyone's kneeling to him. His mother's decapitated corpse kind of hovers in through a window of the treehouse.
This is the thing, actually. Isn't Paimon actually the soul of Charlie? This is the thing?
Yes, so we find out, like, at this point that Paimon had basically been in Charlie the whole time. So it is, we were kind of right, those of us who are kind of horror veterans, and we're like, creepy child, she's going to be bad. Because it turns out that Charlie, from a soul or being perspective, whatever you want to call it, was never really in there. It was Paimon from a very early age, and she was essentially like a holding vessel until they were ready to make their move on Peter, which is what this cult have now done. And by the end of the movie, Peter has become the vessel for this demon of the East Wind, I think it's called. It's some crazy Mesopotamian.
I love the idea that, like, films like this, a little tiny cult gets their demon in a body, and it's like, end of film. Like, what would a sequel of this look like? You know, it's like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. You know, if you ended after the first one, it's like, what does this look like? It's kind of a mistake to go further, but you can't help but wonder. You know,
I think it would be like, did you ever see The Omen or any of its sequels?
No.
So that's about the devil's son.
Damien?
And I believe,
Damien.
Yeah, Damien, exactly. And I believe in the third one he becomes president. And I think that's what, and I think that's where the Hereditary would go if there were sequels. Like the second one would be a bit of an American Pie style comedy, like the Paimon goes to college, and there's like Sean William Scott's a teacher because they want to give a little nod to American Pie, and then, but he still gets up to like devil stuff, but he's also he wants to smoke weed and get laid. That's like we've all been there. And then the third one that gets serious is like he's into politics now, and now he's king of the universe.
He's king of the universe, yeah. That's exactly how it would go. I don't know why Paimon would want to do that. But I believe that is the trajectory.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay, amazing. So, I mean, it sounds like you enjoyed this movie, which thrills me to the core. What would you give it as a rating out of 5 if pushed?
If pushed. Now, the question is it as good as Hocus Pocus? Because didn't I give that 5 out of 5?
I think you did, and in doing so, just absolutely kneecapped the entire system going forward. But we'll not hold that against you.
5 out of 5 with a star next to it. Not a 6.
That's for the listeners to do. 6. Yeah, we cannot get into 6 like that.
No, it's not a 6. It's a little asterisk. It's an asterisk. It's not a 6 star. Okay. I'm gonna say this one is. I think about the films that I've given 4 star. And I genuinely think if we had half stars, I'd go 4.5 star, but they're for cowards. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna give this a legitimate 5 star. No memes. I'm gonna give this a legitimate 5 star.
Very good. Yeah, I think I gave this a 4 star when I first saw it. I something holds me back from giving it a 5, but it is a movie that I can watch over and over again. It is scary as fuck, and
as I say, enjoyable. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 is what I would give it. But we go by stars here, and I round up. Yeah,
we've got to. We stick to the star system because that forces everyone to really consider each star that they're giving. It's like each one is emphatic and important. Yeah. Amazing. Well, okay, I think that's about gonna do it for us here on the Best Movie Podcast Ever, which leaves us with one simple question to answer, as we always do, and that is, Anthony, what's your favourite movie this week?
I don't do it often, but I am going to say Hereditary. I am.
This is unprecedented, folks.
Or the Paw Patrol movie. I saw that with my son as well. Wasn't bad.
Don't you do it.
Maybe 4 star for that one, but we'll go for Hereditary.
It's an unprecedented clean sweep for Hereditary because I'm going to say Hereditary as well. This movie is awesome, and I cannot wait to see what Ari Aster does next. So that just leaves us to say thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. Don't know why I did that when I'm doing a little kind of like. That's the theme song move, I guess, for the jaunty tune that they've written for this. You can find their stuff down in the description below. And thank you to you for joining us. Please consider subscribing. We're the best movie podcast ever on podcasting apps, and we are The Culture Cave on YouTube. Give the show a like, get involved in the comments, let us know what you've been watching, and we will see you same time, same place next week.
Peter!